This podcast contains content that is graphic in nature and mature language that may be unsuitable for children or young listeners. Listener discretion is advised. The choice to take the stand in your own defense is always a risky decision to make. Once on the stand, under oath, a defendant opens themselves up to be questioned and verbally whiplashed by the prosecution, whose only goal in life at that moment is to prove the defendant's guilt. And as you'll hear in this case, just because you tell your side of the story doesn't guarantee the outcome you most desire. Come with us as we weave our way through a case of finger-pointing, questionable witnesses, and a brutal overkill that leaves one man dead and another trying to prove his innocence, even if that means accusing his own father of a heinous murder, on this episode of Sin Law.
Dun dun.
This is not Law and Order. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Sin Law. I'm Kelly.
And I'm Kyler.
And I'm tired.
I'm tired, I'm Dad.
Same. Okay, so today we've got a case that
The crazies.
that is always the case. I couldn't find anything on the internet for this case. The only thing that I have in terms of research was the appeal filed by the defendant. I couldn't find news articles, but that also probably has something to do with the fact that it was 2003 and the parish...
That was after the internet.
Yeah, it was after the internet, but it wasn't like, depending on where you are in the country, those specific newspapers may or may not have digitally archived those.
And Al Gore rolled it all out at the same time?
That's not how that happened. So, anyway, this one is not in any of the parishes that we live next to, and it would be, a good minute to be able to go and actually, cipher through the court records for this case. And the appeal itself was 27 pages long, so I've got a pretty good idea of what happened in this one. And the only thing that I don't have are, specifics about background on the people. So, the victim, the convicted murderer.
Come on, you work for the census. Can't you just use your ends?
Yeah, no, that's not exactly how that works. I work for the government, but I don't work for the government. So,
bitches.
So this one is actually going to take us to Grant Parish, which is the parish that is directly north of Alexandria and that whole area there. It has Pollock and a couple of those other places that you probably have heard
that
of.
fucking place.
Googled Grant Parish. It actually said it's considered north central Louisiana. So it was perfect. Central. Because that's what we try to do on this podcast. Or
Sin Law.
Central, northeastern. And I mean, the majority of our cases are going to be more northeastern, but there's a few that I've picked up that are central.
It's a fucked up region.
Yeah, it's all of the things. But I think everywhere in the country has, different types. I mean, if you go far enough back, you can find all kinds of things.
You could just have stopped it everywhere in the country.
Yes, but I'm just saying, no place in the world is free of crime, free of heinous acts by other people, because if humans are there, bad things are going to happen. So, we've got...
But there's Sweden.
Bad shit still happens in Sweden.
No, they're peaceful.
That's not how that works.
They keep
Baby,
peace.
you know that's not how this works.
Okay, but what about Sri Lanka?
So?
Australia has kangaroos. They've got to be peaceful.
That's not true at all. Not even
Kangaroos
close.
are
dicks. Yes, they are.
But they're cute.
No.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
The little ones.
The big ones are too.
Yeah.
As long as they're not hitting you.
Agree to disagree. Okay.
I think you're cute.
All right, we've got a lot of filler here. You gotta knock it off. All right, stop with the slurping. Okay. Grant Parish, according to the 2020 census, Grant Parish had a population of about 22,000 people.
I told you to use your census ends.
Yeah, see, I did.
Good job.
But that was a Google. I didn't know that.
You're
Although I was a part of the 2020 census. Yeah.
So how do you not know these things?
Because I didn't go to Grant. Well, I did go to Grant Parish, but only for like a half a day.
Oh, how the turntables turn!
Okay, so that was the 2020 census, though, and our case actually takes place it starts in April of 2003, and like I said, April 2003, man by the name of Nick
Brandenburg.
And yes, I have practiced because I want to say Brandenburg so bad. I don't know why my brain leaves out that first N. It just doesn't like it.
Put that in.
Yeah. No. I'm not getting sucked into that. So he was reported missing in April of 2003. It doesn't say what specific day he was reported missing. It just says he was reported missing in April. And he was unfortunately found by a fisherman floating in the Little River in Grant Parish on April 27th of 2003.
It was not a little river.
I don't know. I couldn't actually find it on the map. I don't know which one it is.
I know which one. I know it, because we've gone over the Little River Bridge.
Yeah.
It's not a little river.
It probably just goes a long way. So I don't know. I didn't look up that part specifically. While I was looking at Grant Parish, I couldn't find it. So, the body was severely decomposed, and it was later revealed in the autopsy that the victim had been shot 16 times and had been bound with wire and rope, and the rope was like ski rope around his wrists, legs, and ankles. I think one of the...
you're talking about the water skiing.
Yeah, okay. Water ski rope.
Like the diamond braid?
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
And I think one of his ankles had actually come untied. And so when his body actually was floating at the top, I think they mentioned it with just ankle was tied. So I don't know if that... Not exactly important, but it was noticeable or notable. The exact date of death was unable to be determined because of the amount of decomposition. And
which kind of happens when you get found in the water tied up.
Well, and then depending on how long he was actually in the water, and they had a hard time deciphering that part as well. Although they have a pretty good idea based on the information that they get later. But because of the conflicting stories, they don't know exactly how long he was in there.
Theme for us.
Yeah, well, I mean... Yeah, I don't even know how to come back at that one. Nobody in any of the cases I've come across so far knew how to keep their freaking mouth shut. Nobody. I would like to speak with my attorney is not a phrase that any of these people knew. So, following an investigation, the victim's friend, Nathan Stringer, was arrested and charged with second-degree murder and was indicted on these charges June 13th of 2003. So his body was found on April 27th, and Nathan Stringer was arrested and charged with second-degree murder, indicted 2 months later, or almost 2 months later, April 27th to June 13th.
More like a month and a half, but yeah.
Give or take. So there are so many people involved in this case. They have so many witness testimonies and people that are mentioned in a way that tries to pin some of the blame on them or make them take credit for what happened. And so I'm not actually going to mention all the names. I'm just going to refer to them as we come to them, because it's just a lot. And what we can get into now is the version that the defendant, Stringer, said happened that night. And this is where the intro comes into play, because unlike most defendants that we'll ever talk about or you ever hear about, really, it's very rare, few and far between, that the defendant takes the stand in their own defense.
And it's even fewer and further between that they do it well.
That's also true. That the outcome ends up...
I'm not even counting the outcome. There are some people that can defend themselves, and there are some people that can't. And it's getting harder and harder as time goes on, because juries want more concrete evidence and more statistics than they do want to be persuaded and cajoled and
right.
told a story.
They want CSI.
Yeah, instead of old school lawyers. It's like,
Gumshoe.
like my mom had a friend in North Georgia, Ben, that worked as an attorney for quite a long time. He started out as a real estate attorney and did very, very well. And that was before they changed, basically they changed the rules on how attorneys work.
How do you mean?
He didn't have as many bylaws and such to follow. There weren't as... He went from real estate law to criminal law.
Okay.
And so he didn't do nearly as well in criminal law.
That makes sense.
Mostly due to his vast knowledge of real estate law, but also having a lot to do with the law shows and the what do you call them? What do you call your shows, other than just murder shows?
True crime?
Yeah, that. With the outbreak of the true crime.
You mean like our true crime podcast that we're broadcasting right now? That one?
Yeah, that.
Okay. Go ahead, continue.
Look,
So
I've been at work all week. My brain did a thing.
So since people have more of an idea of what they're supposed to be listening for, what they're supposed to
basically
hear.
But more so that people think that they need hard evidence, they need to be shown something, as opposed to the old style of lawyering where you were told a story, basically.
And you use your common sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was wonderful at telling a story. He could convince the jury that their left shoe was purple and that they grew up in a different state if he really had to.
Right.
But he was one of those good deep South lawyers that he'd talk your ear off and you didn't know what the hell was going on by the end of it, but you knew he was right.
Got it. Okay. So where were we? Nathan Stringer. The whole reason we started talking about lawyers, most good defense lawyers will try to convince their client, although it is our right as citizens of the United States to defend ourselves, we also have the right to keep our mouths shut. It's the Fifth Amendment. And most good defense attorneys will tell you to practice that.
Sit down
right.
and shut up.
They can try to convince you, but again, if you are dead set on taking the stand, which apparently Nathan Stringer was, and he did, so he testified at his trial that he heard rumors that Nick Brandenburg, the victim, was a narc. Can you tell us what a narc is?
Snitches get stitches.
Yes, that's what they say. Snitches wind up in ditches is another one.
Fucking bitches.
Yeah, anyway. So, Nathan Stringer said that he and 3 other people, including Stringer's father, Terry, were involved in a drug manufacturing ring. Guess which drug? Okay, we're moving on. And the victim...
Weed.
No, not that one. And the victim had ratted on them to law enforcement.
Crack cocaine.
So basically, the start of his testimony came out, and this comes up later in the appeal too.
Methamphetamines?
Yes, that one. It took me a second. My brain did not want to understand what you were saying.
I put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
That's absolutely true. So Stringer testified at his trial that he heard that his friend was a narc, and that a couple of the people, if not all of the people in his drug manufacturing ring, had basically put a hit out on him and said there would be money given as a reward to whoever took care of him, because they were worried that he was going to snitch on their whole operation. So everyone in the circle obviously was dealing with drugs and were on drugs of some sort, including the victim, according to Stringer.
I mean, not necessarily. The best dealers don't do their product.
But they all were.
They weren't very good at it then.
So Stringer's story was that on Friday, April the 18th, which would have been Good Friday, that evening, he and Nick Brandenburg were at Stringer's house with Stringer's girlfriend, and
All strung out.
Stringer said that he wanted to talk to Nick about the narc accusation, and so they left to go visit friends. One of the friends later testified that they had been to their house that evening and they helped fix a water leak, and that Nick had shown no signs of duress or worry or fear or anything like that. He sort of just seemed relaxed and, normal Nick.
That seems very counter, very much an antithesis to the drug that they were using.
Depends. He seemed like, I don't know if she meant like relaxed so much as just normal, like he was his normal self. So after leaving the friends, Stringer testified that he got a call from his father, Terry, and then he then dropped his friend Nick off with his father, and that his testimony was he never saw the victim alive again. So now we're going to skip over to the girlfriend, and
who, of course, being the girlfriend, had a much different story.
She absolutely did. How did you know? Because she's testifying.
I just assume because she's
the
girlfriend.
What?
They always got a different story.
You're an ass. So she got on the stand and she said that is not what her boyfriend Nathan Stringer told her.
Mm-hmm.
She said that he flat out said he planned to kill him. And that she saw him load a gun with a handkerchief and with gloves on that day.
What a buzz.
Uh-huh. And that Nathan left during daylight hours, and then he didn't return home until after midnight. And when he got back, he said he had in fact killed Brandenburg, and said, quote, "I went and done what I said I was gonna do," unquote. Now, Nathan...
Damn it, woman, I went and done what I said I was gonna do.
Stringer said that...
I got the damn trash cans, too.
I'm sorry, Stringer's dad was there too, Terry. He was there, and he walked out and asked him if he did what he was going to do. And
I did what I was going to do.
Then again, Nathan said, "Yes, I did." The girlfriend then testified that Stringer got Brandenburg to get out of the car to go look for something after they left their friend's house.
And then Brandenburg got.
And then when Nick bent down and had his back to Nathan pulled the gun and said, quote, "Tell me now, motherfucker, that you're a narc," unquote. To which Nick turned around and said, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And that's when Stringer shot him the first time. Brandenburg, obviously, he had no idea what was going on, and asked him again, like, what are you talking about, as he was starting to try to back away. Stringer repeated the question about being a narc, and again, Nick said he wasn't. And that's when Stringer shot him again. And by this time, Nick was crawling and asked him not to kill him because he had kids. He was begging him not to kill him because he had kids. And Stringer said he just finished him off. Bam, bam, bam. And this is the story that the girlfriend is saying that Stringer told her.
And what that story tells me is that it didn't matter what the answer was.
Yeah.
He had already made up his mind that
absolutely.
He was going to die that night.
That's what it seems like, for sure.
Which
so
just absolutely kills me. Like, why even ask?
Right.
Why you got to get up on that high horse?
Yeah. She and that also to me rings as a story that wasn't made up. That there were a lot of things, and that was almost a direct quote in the appeal. They put her actual testimony in the appeal. So she also testified that Sunday, which would have been Easter Sunday evening.
Hence the title. Not So Good Friday.
Yeah, Not So Good Friday. So she said on Easter Sunday, Terry, Nathan, and herself went to the location where Nathan said he had left the victim's body, which she said was located close to the Little River, and at which point they found the body and...
Find body close to Little River. Over hedge.
No. I think in the testimony that she gave, she said that the conversation between Terry and Nick went something like, Nick asked Terry once he got to the body, is he dead? And Terry said, yep, looks like it. And that's when they started to bind the hands, the feet, the legs together, and
For why?
began to pull him closer to the water. I'm not really sure why they would have bound him after the fact. Maybe
All
just
I
to
can
try to
think of is
make
to
it
make him sink.
dense, maybe, to keep him from having his arms up. But
But if you're gonna do that, bind him to something like a fucking
we'll
rock.
see, and that's the whole other thing, is that there's so many different pieces that come into play, and we'll get there.
Sounds like they're just dumb.
Yeah, so that's basically where the girlfriend's testimony ends. And now we're going to flip over to the dad, Terry. He testified that that Stringer said that he had shot him in the shoulder, and that's why they were going back to check the location and see if he was dead and see if he was still there, and then to try to further dispose of the body.
Told one person he shot him, and then bam, 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 finished him off, and then told his dad that he shot him in the shoulder and wasn't sure whether or not he was dead.
And that's what Terry testified to. And that
Things that make you go,
and that Terry also testified that once they got to the body, that Stringer removed like a spoon and something out of his pocket, some kind of paraphernalia, and then put it back in. I don't remember if it was back in or he took it out and then put it in his own back pocket. And then Terry assisted his son in disposing of the body in the river.
like a spoon. That sounds like heroin.
Right, and I'm not sure what it was. The paraphernalia part. It may have been all. I know that the drug manufacturing ring was meth. I don't know what drugs specifically that they were on. That doesn't get mentioned too much.
Heroin would make this make more sense.
Well, maybe that was part of it, but that's not what they were manufacturing. Maybe that would make more sense if they were manufacturing meth and not heroin.
Well, yeah, no, I fully believe that they were manufacturing meth. That's the
drug of choice. Yeah,
like they're gonna get the most money for that.
Right.
But the whole story makes more sense if they themselves were on heroin.
Right.
That shit is a wonder drug, and I mean that in the worst possible way.
So a non-wonder drug. It's like a anti-Wonder Woman. Okay. So Stringer, we're going to jump back to Stringer now. He testified that it was his father.
Wonder Woman.
Stringer testified that it was his father who told him where the victim's body was, and that he was the one who took them to the location, and that he never told his girlfriend that he killed Nick. Never. He never said that. So, law enforcement later found the .22 rifle at the trailer where Stringer and his girlfriend lived after getting a search warrant. Now, the search warrant part of that is pretty funny, because in the appeal document that I read, the homeowner, the person who actually owned it that they were renting it from, she was getting suspicious because the girlfriend had mentioned to her that Nick was missing. Well, she got concerned, so she was gonna, she asked about it and asked what happened or if anybody had seen him. And when she mentioned that to Nathan told her to keep her damn mouth shut and mind her own damn business. Or she'd end up either dead, something. But he made a threat in her life, and she was like, "Fuck this!" And then that's when she went to the police and gave them permission to search the trailer. So that's exactly what happened with that. So they got the search warrant from the actual property owner and trailer owner and got in there.
That's great.
And after they found the rifle, the defendant actually, fucking Stringer actually confirmed that was the weapon that it was his weapon. Yeah. So again, guess who's back? And I don't know what.
Shady's back.
Well, I don't know which episode's going to come first, but Dr. Karen Ross is making another appearance.
Ooh.
We've already recorded one. I don't know where in sequence it's going to lie, but this is the second time we've talked about Dr. Karen Ross. She performed the autopsy, Dr. Karen Ross performed the autopsy and found that the cause of death was obviously the result of multiple gunshot wounds, being 16 in total. There were 4 in the head, 11 in the trunk, and 1 on the wrist. 9 were penetrating, which means that there was no exit and the bullets were recovered. 2 were perforating, which meant they went through and through. All were believed to have been inflicted while the victim was still alive, which becomes important later.
Huh. You would have thought that penetrating would mean through and through. I understand why, due to the roots of the words and all, but like, I would have assumed that penetrating meant that it penetrated the entire person.
But it does it makes sense that perforating would be a through and through, though, because like perforated paper.
I didn't know that was even the term.
Yeah. And all of them were believed to have been inflicted while the victim was still alive. Don't forget that part. That's important. She couldn't determine the order in which the shots were fired, nor a time frame from the first shot to the last shot. But all were inflicted while he was alive.
It's a wonder she found the shots at all with the decomp.
Yes. But, I mean, if you go through... I mean, the decomp... it's not going to affect so much the muscle structure, depending on how long it's been in the water.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you go with the girlfriend's statement, which said it was Good Friday that it happened, to the day that he was found, which would have been the 27th.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think it was like the 18th to the 27th, so it wasn't even 10 days. And it depends on how long it had been. They don't know how long he was in the water, so it could have been the Good Friday he was overnight he was in the woods and then in the water.
And it's truly a wonder that no animals got to him.
In the 24-hour period, yeah.
Like, 24-hour, my ass. Hogs in the woods and gators in the water?
Yeah, I see what you mean. But if they're not hungry, they go after live things first. Gators most of the time. Well, except for chicken. Anyway, story for another time. So, all of the gunshot wounds were inflicted while the victim was still alive due to the hemorrhaging along the path that the bullets took. That she could still see that they were trying to heal with all of the gunshot wounds, so that meant that his heart was still beating.
That's impressive. He's been in the water for 10 days.
Yep.
Still trying to heal.
And this was all important because that means that Stringer, in his statement that he gave on the stand, it doesn't match up to the physical evidence.
What a surprise.
Bum. And just extra fuel to the fire. The firearms analysis,
Extra fuel to the firearms.
Firearm analysis, Mike Stelly confirmed that the bullets from the victim's body matched the rifle recovered from the defendant's home. So, the defendant confirmed that it was his rifle, and then the analyst matched that rifle to the shots, to the bullets that were in the victim. So,
Check. Jail.
So, Stringer tried to give a reason for his bullets having been in the victim. But listen, this is while he was on the stand. He wasn't responsible, though, even though those were his bullets. He's going to tell you why. Let me tell you what he said. He says the body wouldn't sink after they threw it into the river. And since he was trying to help his daddy, he decided to shoot the body several times so it would sink and not be found. On the stand, he says this.
The fuck?
Basically, he was trying to make it sound like his father had killed Nick, and that he was
just being a good little boy.
Because he was afraid of his dad, and because he was afraid of the other people in the drug ring, and other people involved. He didn't want his dad to get caught, and then the other people to come after him. It was all him saying.
It's just like there's a John boat on the water. You just shoot a couple holes and it goes straight to the bottom.
Sinks straight to the bottom. That's right.
Work for bodies, guys.
And that's the only reason that he helped.
A rock.
He helped dispose of the body. Okay, we're moving on. We're not telling people how to sink bodies.
Absolutely not.
Again, crime scene investigation 101. Okay. So, he didn't want to go against his father's, quote, domineering personality, unquote. Terry was the mover and the shaker, according to the defense, but everything...
That fits so well.
And that's why they should believe Nathan's story, because his dad never took orders from anybody. So why would his dad help him dispose of the body? Why wouldn't it be the other way around? That's what he was trying to play on. So everything everybody else was testifying to was all lies.
My son did something dumb as shit. I'd still help him.
Maybe. Especially if and it all comes back again to, this was a drug ring, and later you'll hear me tell you, we'll get there. But
never go into business with your family.
Well, I mean, that's not always true either. But that's not the point. Moving on. We're going to get there. So,
Never go into business with your drug-addled family.
okay, moving on. Everything everyone else was
Better?
testifying to was all lies. We'll get there. The drug ring guys put a hit out on the victim, and it could have been anybody looking to cash in on the reward money. But not me.
Anybody with my gun and my bullets.
Not me, Nathan Stringer. I didn't do this. I was just helping my dad move the body. I don't know actually who killed him. I just left him with my dad, and then my dad asked me to help him put the body in the river. I don't know what happened. This guy really couldn't pick a story because he says in one sentence, I think my dad did it. The next one, it's like, I don't know who did it, but I helped dad dispose of the body because I didn't want him to get in trouble. And then the next minute, it doesn't make any sense. Everybody's a liar but me. I have daddy issues. Daddy made me do it. All really poor defense strategies.
In a court of law. But you go up to somebody and tell them you have daddy issues, great starter.
So, however, to further this as bullshit, the state introduced a jailhouse note that was intercepted from Nathan to his father while they were both in jail. That stated, and I quote, "I haven't said anything about you. I did about Donald Lee. It's all on him." Unquote. Donald Lee is one of the other men involved in the manufacturing ring, and you could look at this note one of two ways. You could look at this as Nathan is a straight up liar, which we already know. But secondly, this could almost go to bolstering the claim of daddy domineering. Yes, stop touching me. I knew you were going to do that. You see the... So...
You love me. You really love me.
So this could go to bolstering that claim of, I'm going to do what my daddy wants me to do because he told me he's the boss. I do everything he says because I want to make him happy because he's the one who says everything and whatever he says goes.
You're damn right.
But you could also say that this was just his way of trying to save his own neck or to try to save his dad's neck. Either way, it still makes him out to be a liar.
So did he actually say anything about Donald Lee?
Yeah, and when I said at the very beginning I didn't want to get into all the different players and all the different names, there were at least two other people aside from Terry, the dad, who were named as the people who put the hit out, who were also involved in the drug ring, and that they could have had something to do with it.
Okay.
So he did try to throw those people under the bus as well. I was just
curious as to whether he was just fully talking out of his ass, or if he was just like talking out of one cheek.
No, he very specifically, because I think
tongue in cheek. In
his mind, from what I understand, this Donald Lee character, he was more of a major player of the ring. Like he seemed like he was more prominent.
You're not going to throw a peon under the bus. Not unless you're at the top.
Right, I guess that makes more sense. But yeah, so, and he also, a lot of his claims come back to everybody's testimony is being twisted, or it's being...
Everybody's a liar but me?
Yes, but everybody's being manipulated into saying these things because they don't want to go against Donald Lee. Because they don't want Donald Lee to get in trouble, because if Donald Lee gets in trouble, then they are going to get killed just like the narc did.
Got it.
So that's basically his entire defense, was saying
Don't fuck with the Don or we all die.
That's right.
The Don.
The Don. Yes,
that's
yes.
Great.
You're adorable.
That was unintentional.
So, whichever version you choose to believe, the physical evidence supports the case against Nathan Stringer. Because when the law enforcement officer, or a couple of them that got on the stand, the different investigators, when they testified, and the defense actually asked, like, did you investigate these other people that were involved in this thing? And they were like, yes, we investigated everybody. They investigated the other two men, as well as Terry, as well as Nathan. They investigated the wife of one of the men. I mean, they had the full-blown investigation, but when it came down to it, the physical evidence supported one story. It was his gun. They were his bullets. He was the last known person, according to everybody's testimony but his, to have been seen with the victim. And the fact that the autopsy directly contradicted his statement and his testimony on the stand of him shooting days after with his rifle, the jury went with the evidence and the credibility of the state's witnesses and found him guilty of second-degree murder on February 2nd, 2006.
What a shock.
So, the day they found him in the river was April 27, 2003. He was not convicted by a jury until January of 2006. There was a couple reasons for this. It took almost 3 full years to even start the trial due to multiple motions and legal strategies employed by the defense, as well as a mistrial that took place before the trial even started, when the potential jury pool was obviously tainted and they had to start the whole thing over. And that was actually a motion by both parties, the prosecution and the defense, to have a mistrial because the jury pool was just so tainted. Now, the defense did try to motion for a change of venue, but it was denied. So, despite all the setbacks, he was eventually found guilty. And we could take a quick break before we get into the appeal side of this whole thing. So, back from the break, we're going to talk about the appeal and what he felt was appeal worthy.
Appealing?
Yeah. So, Stringer appealed on 3 assignments of error. And assignments of error are just what his basis is for his claim of appeal. So, you don't have to have 3. You can have however many you feel.
Basically, where he thinks they fucked up.
That's right. So, he says, 1, that the state didn't prove that he was the perpetrator beyond a reasonable doubt. It was his gun, it was his bullets, but there was no way for them to definitively prove.
It was really me, guys.
That's right. So, 2, he said the court erred in preventing him from presenting any impeachment witnesses and didn't allow him to effectively cross-examine the witnesses that were presented. And 3, the ineffective assistance of counsel, which is pretty much a blanket thing on most appeals.
Yeah, but it doesn't really count if you went against the wishes of your counsel and decided to represent yourself.
No, that's your right. So, anyway.
Yeah, but would that... No,
no, not really. That doesn't work. You can't. Yeah, but that wasn't one of his arguments anyway.
It's ineffective assistance of counsel. Yeah, no shit.
Okay, so pop quiz. We're gonna go back to whatever grade we took.
I wasn't told I was being tested on this.
Yes. So, whatever grade you took civics, we learned about the Constitution and our rights as they shall not be infringed upon.
Middle school sometime.
Yeah, I was gonna say 5th grade. I thought that was 5th grade. Maybe 8th
It may have
grade?
been for you.
I don't know. Either way, do you know which amendment is cited when an appellee is claiming ineffective assistance of counsel?
No, actually.
Okay, so do you know which amendment gives you a right to a speedy trial?
3rd one? 4th one.
Nope.
6th one.
The 6th one, yes, you got it right.
I know
You're
it's
gonna get
not.
there
I know
eventually,
it's not
even if
1,
you had
2, or 5.
1, 2 to 6. All right. So, yes, the 6th Amendment actually.
Not 1, 2, or 5.
Well, the 6th Amendment actually gives you a lot of things, and basically it covers all the rights that you have once you're accused of a crime.
This is a trick question.
Pretty much. It covers your rights to a speedy trial. It covers your right to a public trial.
I know Miranda guarantees it.
Miranda does not. Okay. So it guarantees your right to a fair trial by a group of your peers and not just a judge if you decide. Your right to a counsel and right to an effective counsel, which was a Supreme Court adjustment that they made because the original amendment doesn't say
It's just you have a right to counsel.
You have a right to a counsel.
Yeah, and this year's Joe
Bob, he graduated from kindergarten yesterday. So, it also gives you the right to notice, which basically means they have to tell you what your charges are.
And the right to notice what, bitch?
And then you have the right to confront witnesses. It means that you can usually see them and ask them questions.
Usually I get in trouble when I try to confront witnesses.
Yeah, well, that you can't intimidate witnesses. That's a different thing.
But I'm just confronting them.
That's not...
Bitch, what you say about me?
Well, in court you can do that, but not like that. So, one of his better arguments was actually his number 2, which was the court erred in preventing him from presenting any impeaching witnesses. And didn't allow him to effectively cross-examine the witnesses. Now, his idea behind it sounded good, but
That's always a great start.
When you look at it from the trial standpoint, and they went into detail with the different testimonies and things, because the prosecution objected to bringing in the victim's drug background, which the argument was, what relevance does this have to do with whether or not Stringer killed him?
Yeah.
It doesn't weigh in any factor with him having been the one who killed him. Now, Stringer had a little bit of a decent argument it would go to show that, they were all in this kind of together, that they were all doing drugs, they were all involved in the manufacturing and processing, and that was why he had a price on his head, and that was where he was kind of going with his defense.
Right.
And he said that because they didn't allow him to bring that in, that impeached his ability to defend himself. They didn't agree. The judge ruled the testimony was irrelevant, and the appellate judges agreed with him. So, during the trial, a law enforcement officer testified that there were investigations done on the other 2 male subjects involved in the drug manufacturing, and even the wife of one of these men, and he acknowledged the threats were made from these men. Like, they knew that they had made those threats and said that there was a bounty on his head, basically, and that the victim being a narc, and that was the reason why they wanted him dead. However, the physical evidence didn't take them to these guys, it took them straight to Nathan Stringer.
Use guys.
So, Stringer also argued that his counsel failed in over 20 bulletin point ways.
That's a lot.
That he was going to be, that he was ineffective. And I'm only going to talk about a couple because we're going to move swiftly forward. He claims that his counsel failed to subpoena witnesses, that he didn't call the FBI witness to testify about the wires from the stereo in his car matching the victim's bindings. So he didn't call the witness for that, because that would have disproved the connection. He said the lawyer didn't subpoena the phone records between him and his dad, which had already been done by the state. He further claimed that his attorney failed to object to relevant testimony that Nathan believed was opinionated and inflammatory. But again, nope.
Yeah, it was about him. Therefore, opinionated and inflammatory.
So, one of them was that they asked one of the officers specifically, like, do you believe that he meant to kill him, or something along those lines. Like, it was one of those kind of opinionated things, but,
Yeah, but they were specifically asking for an opinion.
Right. So in total, again, Nathan claimed 20 different reasons why his lawyer basically fucked him over, and when the fat lady sang, the appellate judges basically said ineffective assistance is usually an argument for post-conviction relief, not an appeal for a new trial.
Damn.
So that one was
done.
So in the end, all 3 errors listed in the appeal were found lacking merit, and his conviction was affirmed. And as of this recording, he is 46 years old, which means he would have been 26 at the time of the murders. That's right. And he is being housed at Angola State Penitentiary and will remain there for life without probation, parole, benefit of suspension of sentence. And
there was a suspension of that sentence.
I could not find fuck you. I could not find anywhere, like I said, I couldn't find any articles about this on the computer. I couldn't.
Right.
There were no newspaper articles.
It's been buried.
I mean, not even that it's been buried, but like I just couldn't find anything. I don't know exactly the age of Nick Brandenburg, but I assume since it stated multiple times that he and Nathan were friends, that they were probably somewhere around the same age. So he was probably under 30 at the time that he was murdered, that he was brutally shot to death and then thrown in the river. Extremely tragic case, like, all because they believed he was going to tell on them, and then their whole shit got outed anyways because
they're all fucking retarded.
It sounds that way. So, do you think that it helped?
I try not to, really.
I'm aware. That's why I'm asking you to do it. Do you think it helped or hurt him in the long run to take the stand in his own defense? And do you think in general that it's a good idea to do so or to not? in what situation would it be a good idea to take the stand in your own defense? What do you think? Because I have an opinion.
I think that if you are innocent or believe strongly that you are innocent, whether you are or not doesn't really matter. If you feel that you can convey enough emotion and that you can convey the facts well enough that you can convince a jury, take the stand. If you don't think you can convince the jury, don't fucking say anything.
Okay, so if you can pull the wool over 12 people's eyes.
Hell, if you can pull the wool over one people's eyes, that's a mistrial.
Yeah. Okay, so kind of same boat for me. My opinion differs a little bit because in my head, the only time I would think that a defendant should get on the stand, regardless, I'd see so there's a couple cases like Jodi Arias. She got on the stand in her own defense. She was claiming self-defense. The other one, Candy Montgomery. Well, they've released these 2 shows here recently about she got on the stand in self-defense. It was a self-defense case. So I think a lot of times if your entire defense is going to be self-defense, that I think the jury has to hear from you. Because,
what happened and how it happened.
Yes, they want to know your version. They want to see what your version says stacked up against whatever other evidence they may or may not have, physical evidence.
Especially when your story is not, I didn't kill them. It's, I killed them for a damn good reason.
That's right. They want you to tell them the reason. And I think as a member of the public, I think that would be something that I would want to hear.
You're just morbid. You would want to hear it regardless.
That's fair. So I think that might be the only time that I could see it being a good idea to take the stand is when you're trying to explain self-defense.
But let me throw a wrench in that from the other point, from another perspective. Mm-hmm. Bundy. He absolutely, if he had actually tried.
Oh no, he did try. And he did a damn good job.
You know what I'm saying? Is like
his arrogance.
If he hadn't gotten sloppy and gotten arrogant.
Well, his arrogance got the best of him, but he always thought he was the smartest person in the room.
Generally, he was.
Well, he was pretty damn smart. I will give him that. And he was very attractive, and he is very charismatic.
He could talk to 12 people and really talk to them.
And so, in that case, yes.
Talk to me, baby.
Talk to me, baby.
So, lesson number 1, people. Never change your story. Whatever you decide you're going to tell them, stick to it.
You know, at the beginning of the episode, we said something, I would like to speak with my attorney. That's the only fucking thing you should ever say to the police. If you're under arrest, the only thing that should come out of your mouth, I would like to speak with my attorney. I don't care what they say to you. Anyway.
Claim mutinous.
Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend getting on the stand and testifying in your own defense because it leaves yourself open to the prosecution and they will rail you. They will do everything in their power to rile you up and to get you to evoke some kind of emotion. And, you know, they did the same thing with Jodi Arias.
Actually, for what it's worth, first and foremost, I would recommend you just don't get arrested.
Well, I mean, yeah, don't kill anybody.
I didn't say that. Just don't get arrested.
And we're done. Great episode, guys. Thanks for listening.
Love you all.
You're great. Don't kill anyone.
Don't get caught. That's
not what we're telling people. You remember who I work for. We're not telling people that.
They don't know who you work for.
Some people will. We're not telling people that.
Don't get caught.
Okay.
Have a good night.
He doesn't. I don't agree with all the opinions stated in this podcast.
It's only illegal if you get caught.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you come back next week. We'll have another good one for you. If you have any thoughts, comments, concerns, questions, or you want to correct something that I got wrong, because if anybody's out there that's listening and actually knows about this case and can tell us something else, we'll be glad to do an update episode or at least update it.
I would love for somebody to tell her that she's wrong and her to actually listen.
Anyways, you can drop us a line at sinlawpodcast@gmail.com. I'll link that in the show notes, as well as the only link that I have for the research that I did for this case down there below. And you guys have a excellent week, whatever week it is that you're listening to this. And we'll see you next time. Take care out there.
Have a good night.
Bye.
This has been an Elf Audio production.